Okay, guys, welcome back. I got three stories for you guys today. They all have to do with actual, some sort of actual bribe, co- court procedures, proceedings, or actual uh, incarceration. So, Brookhaven man indicted for extorting criminal defendants with false claims that prosecutors demand bribes. So, apparently, this individual has been actual charged with wire fraud in a six-count federal indictment for extorting a criminal defendant who had been charged in a federal drug case in Atlanta, to which the actual scheme actually claimed that the federal prosecutor would dismiss the charges in the defendant's case for $15,000. He alleged promised a favorable outcome in the victim's federal case when instead it was just a scam. Nobody's ever going to ask you to pay a bribe in out in the open just like that. You have the right people, have the right contacts, something can be worked out. But a straight out bribe, no. Don't forget, these guys golf together, have lunch, have luncheons in the same groups, churches, etc. And the actual indictment and other information presented in court. Uh, an Atlanta resident was arrested on a criminal indictment filed in the federal court in Georgia upon conviction for one or more of the crimes charged in the federal case. This individual was subject to a term of imprisonment, a term of supervised release, and other penalties and fines. Apparently, in August 2020, the scammer learned about the arrest and met this individual. During the meeting, he saw a copy of the criminal complaint indictment in the actual person named. Then the actual scammer alleged that he was a part-time employee for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation and knew the federal prosecutor that was actually in charge of this individual's case, and he alleged asserted that he could get the charges against this individual dismissed for 15 G's, 15 grand, in which he would actually give the actual money to the federal prosecutor. But the actual person that's being charged, the one that was actually uh, being prosecuted, he refused. He refused. Days later, the scammer met with this person again. This time, he threatened that if the person being charged still refused to pay the 15 G's, that the federal prosecutor would file additional charges against this individual and seek a longer term of imprisonment upon the conviction. Fearing the scammer his threats, he agreed to pay and did pay $12,000 in cash. After making the payment, the scammer falsely claimed that he had given the money to the actual federal prosecutor, who would turn around and actually dismiss the charges against him. But in truth, he kept the money for himself. That's wrong. That's just wrong. Just even discussing this, it's wrong. It's just wrong all the way around. And as he was short initially the $3,000 because it was originally 15, he only gave him 12. He would actually the scammer would ask this individual, hey, for the other three, the 3 grand that you still owe, guarantee a speedy dismissal of this actual case, right? And this actual the person to be prosecuted, he met with him to give him the remaining 3,000, but he recorded the meeting of him actually giving him the 3,000. So he had evidence that he had given him some money, and then so he took it to the actual the feds, the prosecutors, and they put all this information together, and a grand jury actually indicted him. He's a 33-year-old out of Brookhaven, and they charged him with wire fraud and the usual stuff. Okay, so the second one is coming out of Lexington, Kentucky. A former cook supervisor at the United States Penitentiary, Big Sandy, Hank Williams of Kentucky, was sentenced on charges of actually conspiring to distribute 50 grams or more of methamphetamine, accepting a bribe by a public official, and using a communication device to facilitate a felony offense. 210 months. So apparently, he was actually he had been there for quite a bit of time. You know what I mean? And I assume that he had a pretty good pension coming towards him. And when an individual actually has been actually at that level, at that supervisor level of for the cooks, um, you have a lot of actual perks. You know what I mean? You're not gonna get searched every time you go in, and so you can get a lot of things done if you're doing such actual smuggling in. You know what I mean? Contrabanding, and you're gonna feel comfortable. You're gonna feel cool. You're gonna not cool like in like a cool person, like cool under pressure. You know what I mean? You're not gonna be sweating. It's not gonna be a big thing for you to actually conduct these actual smuggling of actual contraband. And so the he actually conspired with a 34-year-old and others to distribute 50 grams or more methamphetamine. He accepted actual bribes, and he actually used the U.S. Mail Postal Service to distribute the controlled substances. They don't go into much detail, but what could have actually, this is just my theory, is so he might have had access to the actual mail that had already been searched and processed, and it was ready to get hand delivered to the actual inmates. So he might have skipped the whole inspection of contraband of substances in the actual mailing envelopes, and they can soak these actual substances into paper. And there are different ways to actually break it down and actually convert it into something solid, and then you got a bunch of meth in hard like almost like the greeting cards, that type of actual paper, thick, and they'll actually leak the substance into these type of actual uh, gift 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 cards, right? So I'm thinking that's how he actually got the actual uh, got it to the actual prisoners without arising any kind of suspicion. So therefore, they just got it hand delivered, and already they skipped the whole scrutiny, the whole actual investigation, the whole uh, the canines. They skipped all that and they just delivered to the actual uh, prisoners. And so um, he will actually have to serve 85% of his prison sentence. That's what he negotiated. There's usually no halftime or percentage, but apparently he gave some good information out that they gave him he has to do at least 85%. And this actual other one is coming out of Little Rock. Federal inmate sentenced to 5 additional years in prison for bribing a guard to bring in drugs into the actual jail. So apparently, this actual inmate was already in some kind of county jail, and so He actually approached. Okay, so he was being held as a federal inmate and at the actual Dallas County Detention Center to await the resolution of his federal crime case in which he was charged with a firearms offense. So he was already locked up, and apparently he approached a guard working at the jail and offered to pay him to bring in contraband into the jail with the help of other inmates. But he actually directed the actual delivery of tobacco, marijuana, cocaine, and heroin, and then they would actually pass this actual dope to this guy who's actually calling all the shots. Apparently he accepted the deliveries on September 4th and the 8th of 2017, and a jailhouse employee noticed the guard making a transfer to this inmate's cell. Security video from the actual September the 9th, 2017, shows this individual getting out of his car with an object wrapped in a blanket, which he later passed on to the actual inmate. A search of the actual inmate's cell revealed a pillowcase containing two square objects, which were examined by the Arkansas State Crime Lab and determined to be 764.4 grams of cocaine and 739.6 grams of heroin. Quite a bit of actual weight. And so he got additional 5 years for this actual uh, scheme, the actual conspiracy. And there was two other individuals also as conspirators, and and then this actual guard guy, he's also being charged, and then he's also in custody, waiting to be actually. Um, I guess he's gonna plead no, not guilty. He's gonna take it to trial, right? Okay, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe.